Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. Zystral here, and there's no funny intro this time because we're getting straight to business. So now that you know what card advantage actually means, let's take a look at what it really means a bit deeper. So the general concept for this episode is the difference between a hard plus and a soft plus. And before I make stupid jokes like, you know what else is soft and hard? Let's just jump right into it. So in the previous episode, we briefly touched upon how guarding with the 10k shield to prevent your opponent from drawing a card doesn't change the number of cards between either player's differences, but changes the card quality within the hands. So your opponent hasn't gained much, but by losing the 10k shield, you've lost the minimum, so the difference in quality has been minimized. But things aren't always so linear. After all, how many 16k was on hit draw do you know of? Exactly. So remember, card advantage doesn't always just mean more cards in hand, it also means more cards in play. So a Chaos deck with a full field but only 2 cards in hand is still up on cards against a Gridora player with no field but 5 cards in hand. So given how the system works in Vanguard, having a back row actually doesn't directly contribute to the advantage, because your back row can't obviously attack, right? But now the question remains, is a card on the field worth more than a card in hand? Well, that depends. A trigger in your hand is worth a lot more than on play because it's a 10k shield that you can guard with, or maybe even a G guard in the case of a heal trigger. Whereas say a Dubnium in play is worth a lot more than one in hand because it can actually attack and use its skills. And then you've got things about like whether or not Soul counts as card advantage, and spoilers, in decks that care, it is. But of course, you've also got to consider the fact that a trigger in play cannot so easily become one in hand, unless you're playing like Bermuda Triangle or something. By this point, it should be quite obvious that a card in hand is worth a lot more, and a card in play is worth a bit less, but there's still card advantage, which is why we use the differentiation between hard plus and soft plus. So adding cards to hand is the hard plus, and adding cards in play is the soft plus. This isn't the actual bottom line, and the actual definition changes as the game goes on, and depending on what deck you're playing. But that doesn't mean you should discredit soft pluses either. The reasons to think about them is that they usually cost a lot less. They can have ramifications in other areas, like for example being able to play more aggressively. I think an on-call attack is probably better than an on-call draw in most cases. And soft pluses also tend to have a bit more reliability. So for example, if you're drawing a random card, you could be drawing a 10k vanilla trigger, you could be drawing a grade 3, you could be drawing whatever. Whereas a soft plus that actually calls something to play usually has a better search net. So for example, search your deck for this, call that from Soul, whatever. Time for an example. Spearhead Unicorn. God, I hate that card. Is a soft plus because it can either show you 2 heals, a PG and a sheep, or it can show you a Rewind Tiger, a Transit Dragon, a Manish and a Cruising Dragon. I've seen both of those happen actually. In the first case, you don't want to call any of those because those cards all have more value in the deck or in your hand than they do in play. Well, with the exception of Sheep, but he needs to be called from hand anyway. Whereas in the second option, literally all 4 of those are good cards to put down into the field, because they actually give you some other value while they're in play. Now, in the case of Cruising Dragon, it could show you maybe 3 Chronojets, and that would kind of suck. Like sure, 1 Chronojet is still a PG fodder, or maybe Stride fodder, or if you're playing Jet Z, both, but it's really no, it's not the same as say a PG or a heal trigger. Now if Cruising Dragon finds you that PG or a heal trigger, that's brilliant, that's the best case scenario, right? Even if it shows you say 2 crits and a Transit Dragon, that Transit Dragon is still a plus in field, and that crit is still the 10k shield you have, instead of just calling a random 5k booster in the case of say Spearhead Unicorn. And the thing about having the Transit Dragon is that the Transit Dragon in hand, you can actually position it properly during your next turn and decide how to get the maximum value out of it, as opposed to just say slapping it in the field with Unicorn and hoping that it works. So as I said earlier, soft pluses may seem worse than hard pluses, but they're generally easier to come by, and the fact that they cost less means that they can open up different options for your gameplay choices. So for example, it's arguably better to use the Magia effect during battle to call over a unit that you call from hand, because that extra attack will force more guard pressure from your opponent, or give you free damage, and that unit itself might be able to chain out into more attacks. So you chain several soft pluses to outvalue the case of a hard plus. Or even if it draws you a card at the end of that soft plus, it converts itself from a soft plus into a hard plus, like say if you call out the crit trigger for Harry off the Magia effect. Sometimes you might not want to go through too many lengths to get the hard plus, so for example you might want to just pay for Morphesis on hit and call something to field, because if you could jump through a few hoops to draw 2 cards off of, say, sacking your Belials, then maybe your opponent just randomly integrals you and then you just lost those cards for nothing. If you see 3 triggers off of Quill, then, you know, it's not great. You get like a 5k booster, you'd rather find like a Jeffrey, but it's still something. Whereas if you say call a Periton, Periton can call literally anything, and that's a much better quality of plus. So even within the context of soft pluses and hard pluses, you've still got the difference of card quality in those. So that's, again, you need to evaluate that and determine which is the best course of action right now. All of this is pretty intangible stuff, since it's not only context dependent, but it also changes throughout the course of a game. So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, this case means that case means this. You have to identify and process the information you're getting at each individual choice, and then making an informed decision from that. And it changes every moment in time, which means you need to be constantly thinking, okay, I now know this, does that change anything? I now know that, does that change anything? Or planning ahead, maybe even 2 or 3 turns, going, okay, if this card can do this, what will it look like later down the line? Hopefully this episode was a lot more insightful, as it gave you a bit more reasoning and context and some of the more nuanced decisions you might make in a game. And if not, you know, sorry for listening to my voice, but if so, you can go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to the YellowCard Vanguard. Stay tuned for part 3, I promise there'll be some interesting stuff there as well. Once again, click that bell button, keep up to date with us, really helps us out, likes on Facebook, all the usual stuff. And that's Zystral signing out for this time, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.